Hello, everyone. It's Paul Gamber with Cruise Planners Getaway Gang and my partner in crime over there, Ed Gates. How you doing, Ed?
Howdy, everybody. I'm good. Paul, how you doing?
I am wonderful. We are here today on Tuesday, January 14th of 2020 with another edition of Travel Talk Live.
Awesome.
We got a fun show today. It won't be quite as long as last week's news segment. We'll get into that in a minute, but a couple housekeeping items first. I was talking to Ed about this earlier today. I want to remind you again about our group cruise that's coming up in November of this year out of Fort Lauderdale on the Carnival Breeze, November 15th through the 21st. We are taking a 6-day cruise down to a private island, Half Moon Cay in the Bahamas, followed by Amber Cove, Dominican Republic, and Grand Turk in the Turks and Caicos. It's going to be a fantastic time for a fantastic deal. And I'm telling you, I was telling Ed, we've booked a lot of cabins, and I don't want you to miss out on this cruise. And I've talked to some other people that I know are interested. So if you've been thinking about it, do it now. Visit us at getawaygang.com or give us a call. I'll put our info in the description of this video. Don't miss out.
That's right. It's filling up fast. So if you guys want to go, have fun with us. It's going to be a party, but it also will be a nice, relaxing vacation. It's suitable for kids, suitable for the whole family. You don't have to do the group thing with us the whole time. I mean, we could just get together. But if you wanted to use an excuse to go take a vacation with the family there, bring them along and have a great time. And but if you want to get this great rate that we have on this particular cruise, that's going to be it's been doing nothing but going up ever since we booked it. So book it with us, get that locked in rate, get those great amenities that we're adding on to it, and have a great time.
Absolutely. Give us a call. The other thing, a quick reminder, is that as we're entering the new year here, we do a Q&A, sort of a travel agent Q&A show regularly on the last Tuesday of the month. So I'm asking you, drop a question in the comments, whether we're on Facebook or YouTube. We will collect those and try to get to those at the end of every month when we do that last Tuesday Q&A. So anything to do with travel, any kind of question, ask it. Please ask us, and we'd love to answer it for you. And we'll keep reminding you about that every time we go live. But get your questions ready and ask them in the comments of any video that we do. So we'd love to talk to you about your question. So before we go ahead. Sorry.
If you've got a question about travel at all, don't feel free to reach out to us and call us directly or email us or send us a private message as well. Whatever you want to do, comment anywhere, anytime. If you got something that comes up travel related and you're like, oh, Paul or Ed might know the answer to this, give us a call, and we'll get an answer for it right away. That's why we do what we do.
Of course.
If it's a compelling enough question, we'll probably include it in our question and answer episode as well. So we've had that happen a lot, Paul, where people just ask us a question. We're like, hey, that's a great. I bet other people are wondering that too.
Absolutely, all the time. And I didn't mean to imply that we wouldn't answer you until the end of the month. I worded that poorly, so thank you for jumping in.
Oh no, it's fine. But I just want everybody to know we're always a phone call away to answer your questions anytime. But our Q&A show is fun. If you want to contribute to it, we had a couple people. The last show we did a couple months ago, we didn't do one in December, but we did one in November. We got a bunch of questions from I think two users.
It's time. It's time to do another. So we look to that. So before I dive into today's main subject, Ed, can you give us an update? I was curious about Puerto Rico, and I know it's not a news show today, but that was such a big story. I just was hoping we had an update on, at least on our perspective on the tourism side down there in Puerto Rico. So.
Actually, yeah, and we did get a press release from from Discover Puerto Rico, the official tourism website, a press release from Puerto Rico, PR from PR. As you know, Puerto Rico has been hit hard over the last week with very, very strong quakes. And I was remarking to Paul, these quakes are all right around upper 5s, lower 6. I mean, he lives in California. I've lived in California. You could feel it when it's a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a few miles away. Usually it's inland. We're over by the coast or something. You could feel those. These are 5s and 6s. These are pretty. These are rocky around a little bit, and they've done a lot of damage over there, including knocking out power and damaging buildings. So a lot of people are wondering, with all these quakes, what's going on in Puerto Rico? Should I cancel my cruise? Should I cancel my travel plans? Well, here's the official statement from Discover Puerto Rico. They say Puerto Rico is open for tourism. This past week, we welcomed nearly 56,000 cruise passengers into our San Juan part, and we're excited to welcome 6 more cruise ships this weekend.
Awesome.
Power across the island has been restored at 93%. All flights continue to operate normally to and from the San Juan, Luis Munoz Marin, Ponce, and Aguadilla airports. I never heard that one. And all major hotels are operating normally. Taxis and rideshare options are also available. The Ponce Cruise Port, the Puerto Rico Convention Center, and major attractions such as El Morro, El Yunque. Did I say that one right?
El Yunque.
El Yunque. San Cristobal Fort, including areas around San Juan, continue to be open. Our beaches, natural attractions, restaurants, and travel service providers are welcoming visitors and sharing Puerto Rico's unique culture and warm hospitality. So that's good to know. They are encouraging all visitors who have an upcoming trip to Puerto Rico to continue to show their support for the island via tourism, which is what we talked about last week too. Being that tourism is such a major part of Puerto Rico's economy, canceling your travel plans could actually be detrimental.
Yeah.
To keep the economy recovering, they must keep tourism strong, and so they're putting all their money right now on making sure there's tourist centers, San Juan, El Morro, where was it? So the other places,
yes, of course,
are still Ponce is still operating to full capacity. So don't worry about it. If you've got a trip to Puerto Rico, go have fun, spend lots of money, and help them recover through this.
Absolutely.
They closed it off by saying, we stand with impacted communities recovering in the southern regions and are confident that Puerto Rico's resilient spirit will shine through now more than ever. And if you want some more information about travel updates, or if you're going somewhere, maybe you're going to the southern areas that are experiencing the quakes, go to discoverpuertorico.com and you can get travel updates up to the minute there.
Fantastic. Well, I know we touched on it last week and how important tourism is. So they're absolutely right. Don't cancel your trip. They've got things under control. And yes, we see a lot on the news too. And some of the more outlying, communities that are away from the bigger cities, they still got a lot of work to do for sure. And so obviously continue to support them in any way you can, including tourism. So thanks for the update. I
got a lot of work to do on my Spanish pronunciations too.
That's okay. Yeah. Well,
hey, Paul, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I am ready to talk about something that we've mentioned before. We've just barely touched on it here and there, and it won't be a hugely long show, but you've probably heard about repositioning cruises. So I wanted to talk about repositioning cruises today because it's something you need to know about, and it's a pretty well-kept secret still. So
absolutely. And I had a friend of mine actually talk to me about repositioning cruises as a great option for something that her family would be interested in. So she did ask me about it. It kind of inspired me to come to you and talk to you about what can we do? What can we do to let everybody know a little bit more about what repositioning cruises are? Awesome. So why don't we kick it off with that, Paul? I want to ask you, what is a repositioning cruise? And what does it do, and what's it all about?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I mean, as you can imagine, cruise lines, they schedule their ships based on seasons around the world. And, some places have longer seasons than others. Sometimes they'll have a ship in a port for a year or two doing those trips back to back to back. And whereas a majority of cruises that you'll see from all cruise lines are round trip voyages, a repositioning cruise in essence, is it's a one-way itinerary where cruise lines they use them to move their ships from one port, one part of the world to another part of the world, and it helps them to keep those ships in service and producing revenue, even when it's just going to be a one-way cruise that they're moving their ships. So to boil it down, they're one-way, they're one-off cruises, and it's where the ships are changing their seasonal home port. That's kind of the definition of a repositioning cruise. So in terms of the time of year when those happen, you generally want to look for them in the fall and in the spring. Those are the time, it's not always within those parameters, but by far that's when most of them are. So, there are, I would say, a lot of the repositioning cruises, they tend to be longer cruises. They're one way, so they may go across an ocean, the Pacific or the Atlantic, or they may venture through the Panama Canal, something like that. But ones that I am particularly interested in, although there's some fantastic voyages that are longer, are for people that may be first-time cruisers. And so there's some excellent short ones too. So there's some really long ones, and there's some short ones that are shorter than those, 6-7 day cruises that the bulk of cruises are. So it's a great chance, especially on the west coast of the U.S., to take a trip maybe from Southern California up to Seattle along the western seaboard, something like that. It's a shorter cruise. Maybe you're new to cruising, or you want to try out a cruise line that you've never tried out. And so that's a great way to do that in a repositioning cruise, generally in the spring or the fall.
Oh, cool. So it's like basically while the seasons are changing, they're going to be moving these cruises. So if it gets too cold to do Alaska cruises anymore, they're going to move them down into the Southern California area.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Alaska is the prime example because it's a huge market. We've talked a lot about that. Everyone wants into it. Princess and Holland America, they dominated Alaska over the years, but now Carnival's in there, Royal Caribbean's in there, Norwegian's making a very strong play. All of those just within the mass market cruise lines are doing a lot. But Alaska's only 4 months out of the year. The season only goes May through September, and mid-May through mid-September, although they're trying to push that a little bit. And so those ships, they have to be elsewhere during the year. They've got to come from somewhere. So that's a lot of ships move to Alaska, and there's great chance for short and long repositioning cruises around that. So
cool. So obviously that's a benefit for somebody who wants to go on an interesting cruise. What are some of the other benefits or drawbacks, if there are any, of a repositioning cruise?
Sure, and I would say it's, there are more benefits than drawbacks, in my opinion. So the biggest reason above all is that prices are going to be lower on almost any repositioning cruise because cruise lines, they want to fill the ships up. A lot of people, they don't want to do a one-way trip. They don't want to have that maybe extra plane ticket cost, but you can get a fantastic deal so that the cruise lines can, they want to fill these up. They price them very attractively. So they're also a great way to see ports that are less traveled. We've talked about before, a lot of you have been to Mexico, you've been to a lot of ports in the Caribbean, but repositioning cruises, you might get to see some place that you never see on another cruise that they just don't visit that often. And so for people who are more well-traveled, they're looking for new ports to visit, new countries to visit, it can be a great way to see one on a repositioning cruise. So for instance, like a voyage that's going to cross the ocean as it repositions from Europe to the Caribbean, you may not experience jet lag in the same way. So you wanted to go to Europe, you wanted to see some major cities in Europe, a cruise is a great way to do that. And then you're coming home and you're not having to deal with that jet lag. So it can be great to fly to Europe, explore a bit, or take a European cruise that then turns around and crosses the Atlantic. So that can be an advantage too, to avoid that jet lag. Some of you, and this can be both a plus or a minus, you may love sea days at sea, or you may not like them as much. If you love them, a repositioning cruise can be a real plus because a lot of times they're going to cover more days at sea. They're going to have more time for you to relax and enjoy things on the ship than you would on a regular cruise. But at the same time, If you don't like that, if you like to be off the ship and you use the ship as your moving hotel and destination, getting you to your destination rather than a relaxation and enjoying those shipboard activities, then that could be a drawback for you. As I mentioned before, if you're looking to test the water, you've never cruised, or you want to try out a new cruise line, there are those short itineraries, a real plus. And of course, longer itineraries for people who are looking for the most bang for their buck, looking for some new places. You can often find a brand new ship. We've talked about like the Royal Princess or the Norwegian Encore or one of these, the Panorama, Carnival Panorama, although that they don't do repositioning cruises with the Panorama. Anyway, my point is you can often experience a brand new ship for a lot less money on a repositioning cruise, because if you've shopped around, you love the biggest, the newest, they're always the most expensive cruises too. So a great way to experience a big brand new ship at a discount. So that's another plus. And my final thought about a drawback will be, although it's not as big a deal these days in looking at airfare, is you'll need an open jaw ticket. So instead of flying to Florida, going on a cruise, flying home, you'll fly somewhere and then fly home out of another port. So instead of a round trip, they call it an open jaw. But a lot of times it's really not that much more expensive. So it could be a wash on that as a plus or a minus. So those are some of my thoughts.
Like definitely the pros outweigh the cons there.
Absolutely, I think.
It's interesting to think of, with exception to some of the regular transatlantic cruises that happen regularly, for a cruise to not be round trip, so to speak, is kind of interesting. So that sounds like definitely something interesting to pique my interest, at least.
Absolutely. I know we've talked some about this too, about how you crave some of those extra days at sea sometimes. So
yeah. I love it. You got any tips, Paul, for finding some great deals, or just repositioning cruises alone? Any tips on or trade secrets?
Trade. Well, some of the things I think of outside of what we've already talked about are the best prices on repositioning cruises, and this is opposite a lot of times of traditional cruises, are often found closer to sailing date. So that's not always true, but more so than regular cruises where prices go up and up and up. If a cruise company isn't filling that ship up in that repositioning cruise, they're going to keep that price low. They're going to drive it down. So if you've got a little more flexibility, you've got your eye on it, you may find the best price closer in to the cruise date on those repositioning cruises.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, as much as we love that tip, waiting the last minute, if you're trying to get a good deal, is not always the best way to pay off.
Oh, I agree, and that's it's
if you're on a budget, make sure you book it, and then at the best. If you're gonna wait till last minute, make sure you have the flexibility and realize that you're probably not going to do it. It's a little risky, is what I
may miss out. It's absolutely risky, and so that's part of what we like to do is put us to work for you, and we'll keep our eye on it and give you our professional opinion for you, because we don't want you to miss out. But sometimes it unlike all those other cruises, you might luck out, but overall the prices are better anyway on repositioning cruises. So another tip I have is don't make one of these longer repositioning cruises your first ever cruise. Try one of the short ones. That's the way. But the long ones, as attractive as they may be, if you've never cruised, may not be a great idea. And trust me, this is coming from somebody who's passionate about cruising, but I think you'd probably agree with me on that. It could be a little dangerous.
Yeah. I was really excited because when we started talking about our first cruise, we ended up doing a 7-day Western Caribbean, but I saw the one going through the Panama Canal, which is a fairly regular Norwegian repositioning cruise where they move from Southern California into the Caribbean. And I was excited. I was like, let's do a 14-day cruise, Paul. And he's like, wait a second. That's a cruise. So
that's advanced. That's not cruising 101. That's like cruising 301 at least.
Right,
So.
exactly. It's upperclassmen cruising.
That's right. That's right. For upperclassmen. So and the the last, I guess that's really all the tips I have. Oh no, one more. I knew I was forgetting one. The last one I have, and it's in the same vein, is know thy ship. Okay, the ship can be more important on a repositioning cruise, particularly a longer one, or even a shorter one with more sea days, than it is on other cruises. If you're going to spend time on that ship, know the restaurants, know the activities. Let us fill you in on the ship itself, what the offerings are, because if you're spending more time on it, you're going to want to know the kind of stuff you're going to be able to do, the kind of food you're going to be able to eat. So that's my other tip. So.
Yeah. And that's a good tip for any cruise.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So, Paul put together a list here that we're going to go over with you. We created a list of some of the upcoming 2020 repositioning cruises, and we're going to give you some highlights from them. Here, Paul, going to kick us off. What you got for the springtime?
Well, this was so hard to do. I spent more time on anything with the show, just trying to boil down some itineraries that looked fantastic. And so we picked a few in the spring and a couple in the fall. So these are coming up real fast, the spring ones, just in a few months. So if one catches your ear, don't delay. Some of the springtime ones, Royal Caribbean Rhapsody of the Seas has a 14-night transatlantic cruise that starts in Tampa. So it's not as one of the as busy a port. So a good opportunity for those looking for a smaller port to go out of or that live in Tampa. It goes 14 nights from Tampa all the way to Barcelona, Spain. Departing on April 18th, it'll visit Bermuda, the Azores, and a couple ports in Spain. It's got a good number of sea days, as you can figure out, 14 days. And also 3 ports in southern Spain. I would say Rhapsody is a great place to be if you're spending more than a week crossing the ocean, because it has a lot of at-sea activities, outdoor movies, dance classes, cooking demonstrations, rock climbing, game shows, and wine tasting. And here's the most incredible part. Prices start at only $1,124, so $1,124 per person for a 2-week international cruise. So
wow.
on a fantastic ship.
Wow. Hey, Holland America also has a trans-Pacific cruise, repositioning cruise. You don't hear about those very often. It's on board the Holland America MS Westerdam. It's a 15-night cruise from Yokohama, Tokyo to Vancouver. Departs April 25th, 2020, and it visits Hichakinaka, Miyako, Japan, Muroran, Kushiro, Kodiak, Alaska, and then Ketchikan, Alaska.
So it ends in Alaska. Cool.
Yeah. And then into, I guess, Vancouver. Holland America Spring Crossing on Westerdam stitches together an itinerary between Japan and Canada's British Columbia as the ship repositions from Asia for its Alaska summer cruising season. You'll get to explore 4 Japanese ports, as well as 2 destinations in Alaska before the sailing winds down in Vancouver. While a considerable portion of the cruise is spent at sea, you have an entire 7 days.
Wow.
One of those offers guided scenic cruising through Alaska's Inside Passage. At least plenty of time to explore Westerdam, which comes outfitted with 3 live music venues, B.B. King's Blues Club, Lincoln Center Stage, and Billboard on board. The retreat area with private cabanas and it's how do you pronounce this? Rijksmuseum?
Rijksmuseum, yes.
Rijksmuseum at sea. I'm never good with Norwegian either. Featuring reproductions of some of the famed Amsterdam Museum's masterpieces. Prices start at, get this, $1,305 per person for a 15-day trans-Pacific cruise.
Yeah, that's insane. So as you can see, you're seeing a trend here with some incredible itineraries for less money. So the last one I wanted to highlight in the spring also leaves in April, and I could not believe this. I want to do this. I shouldn't say unfortunately, but I'll already be on a cruise when this cruise is going on. But this one is on the Norwegian Joy. We've talked about we were able to do an overnight on the Joy when she came to LA right before she started doing her Mexican itineraries. Well, this one is a 5-night U.S. West Coast. So this is a shorter one on a brand new awesome ship. Goes from Los Angeles to Vancouver. It leaves on April 19th, and it'll make a stop in San Francisco with 2 sea days surrounding that. And then when you get to Vancouver, it includes an overnight. I think you get into Vancouver in the afternoon, and you have time to explore and spend one more night on board the ship on that 5th night. So you get like a free hotel night in Vancouver, really, on the ship before you disembark. So it's a great way to check out a big new ship on a shorter cruise. We can say for sure that the Joy has amazing dining options, both dining room and specialty dining, and cutting-edge entertainment that includes Broadway-style shows, a virtual reality pavilion, and something we've done, the go-kart racing, which is pretty wild. Here's the part that blows my mind. Inside cabins on this 5-day cruise start at just $293 a person, and even balconies are $384 starting point, and suites at $489 a person. Do it. If you're not going on the panorama with us on April 18th, you should do this cruise because, wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible.
Norwegian. Speaking of, don't forget about that cruise. A couple of my friends were asking about some West Coast repositioning cruise. That's the one.
That is the one.
Yeah, get on that one. And it's coming up soon, and there's still tons of spots. So
yeah, absolutely.
In the fall, Norwegian also has the Norwegian Epic does a transatlantic cruise from Barcelona to San Juan. They reposition back into the Caribbean. The Barcelona to San Juan voyage on a Norwegian cruise line incorporates a good mix of Atlantic and Caribbean isles, along with 2 stops in southern Spain. After sailing to Malaga and Cadiz in Spain, you'll hit up 2 Atlantic isles at Madeira and the Canary Islands before crossing over into the Caribbean, where you'll visit the British Virgin Islands before disembarking in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Departs November 23rd, 2020, and it's a 13-night transatlantic cruise. There are 7 sea days as well on this whole thing, so giving you plenty of time to take in the Epic, which is another awesome Norwegian ship with tons of specialty dining, so many 2 Broadway shows, and a Beatles-inspired pub, and a water park.
Yeah.
On this one, it's keep in mind it's 13 nights, so it's not as cheap as Paul's 5-night up the California coast. But inside cabins are starting at $944. Another one, it's less than $2,000 for a 2-week cruise. This is incredible. Balconies are at $1,112 per person. This is one. If you're good, the only thing about this, the only drawback about this one is you're gonna have to fly all the way to Barcelona.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna have to fly back from San Juan, and round trip one way to Europe. That's one of those drawbacks Paul was talking about. That
you have to plan that cost in, because this kind of open jaw where you're going to Spain and then home from San Juan. Yeah, but it may be worth it because it's a fantastic ship and a fantastic price. So. Just, but it is something to keep in mind. Yeah.
Also, keep in mind luggage. You're going to be on this ship for 13 days. You're going to need at least 2 weeks worth of clothes. So you're going to have to pack light if you're traveling, that far on planes, unless you want to pay a lot of extra luggage fees. So got to factor that into your costs here. But this is still a screaming deal. If you're a seasoned traveler and you're like, no problem, I can throw everything I need into one suitcase for 2 weeks, go for it.
I've done it. I can never get Stephanie to do it, but when we went to Italy a couple of years ago, everything that I needed for 2 weeks was on my back, which was probably my most impressive packing job ever. So let's just say it requires doing laundry midway through the trip. So,
yep.
But anyway, the last thing that I wanted to highlight today, and then we'll wrap things up. And this is an example of a brand new ship that if you're doing one of the normal 7-day round trip itineraries that you'd probably pay twice this or close to it sometimes, and that's the Royal Princess, which is Princess' brand new ship. This one is a 7-day repositioning that goes from Vancouver and back down to Los Angeles in September 26th. It'll hit Victoria, British Columbia, which is a great stop, Astoria, Oregon, San Francisco, Santa Barbara, which is not visited that often, and then into Los Angeles. It also has 2 sea days. So I like the sound of that itinerary, stretching out that West Coast a little bit. Like I said, it's the Princess's newest ship. So the price point for a 7-day cruise on that ship is lower than that because it's a repositioning cruise. Inside cabins start at $909 a person, and balconies at $1049, which is a fantastic price for 7 days on a brand new ship. So
that's neat. I mean, Paul, I didn't know Astoria had a cruise port. It probably doesn't. It's probably
no. I'm sure they tender into it.
Yeah, I mean, Astoria is beautiful. It's where a lot of movies were filmed too, and I didn't realize that it ever ends up on it. It's probably one of those places that you're talking about where the cruise ships don't go to very often. So,
absolutely.
What a fun stop that one would be.
Absolutely. So I could go on all day. Those were some of the ones that I wanted to highlight on our show today. And I hope you liked it. Obviously, if you have any, questions about any of these or any repositioning cruise, ask us. We'd love to help.
Absolutely.
I was waiting for you.
All right. Well, I mean, we're going to wrap it up today.
Yep.
I was waiting for you to wrap it up here. But
I'll wrap it up. It's fine. I appreciate you guys.
Hey, you know what? We're so much used to going another half hour here.
I know. It's only 33 minutes or less today. So, as always, if you're watching on Facebook, give us a like, drop a comment in our watch party or in our VIP group. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment there, give us a like, and come join our VIP group. We share a lot of great content there, and the link will be in the description to this video. So until we meet again next week, where we're going to talk about a couple cool destinations.
Right. Next week's our destination show, and so make sure you tune in for that.
It is
we're going to discuss a couple cruises, or a couple spots coming up on the upcoming group cruise we talked about. That's going to be leaving in April. So
absolutely.
Thanks for that.
All right. Well, we'll see you there, Eddie, and all of you viewers out there on the interwebs. Thank you as always.
Thank you for watching.
Getaway gang. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.
See you guys.